to the biggest, to the best language in the world, PHP. Come on, let's clap for PHP. Probably know this website, call it Stack Overflow. It's, obviously known. Not that used these days because typically people now, they kind of use AI to kind of have some of the answers now. Still, Stack Overflow, every year, they actually make this survey to a bunch of developers. It just literally talks about technologies and the most used technologies. Now, there is something that TypeScript always comes in as a different language. Can we all agree that TypeScript is literally JavaScript? Like, TypeScript is literally JavaScript. Like, why would TypeScript be classified here as a different language? It's the most used language out there. Like, we need to acknowledge that JavaScript is literally the most used language out there. And the reason why JavaScript is so much used, it's because you would never do any front end without JavaScript today. You know what I mean? But yeah, so I feel like JavaScript it's obviously a very energized community and we have amazing people over there. I feel like JavaScript have made an amazing job by allowing people to use React Native to build mobile applications. JavaScript have made an amazing job making the ecosystem a little bit more modern, because coding for a browser is not easy. Coding for a browser is super complicated, and I feel like over time, the community on JavaScript have made an amazing job with TypeScript, with React, but also kind of, making all this possible, basically, you know what I mean? PowerShell? What do you mean about PowerShell? Why would PowerShell be listed? Is PowerShell a language? This is CLI, no? Wait, what? Why would PowerShell appear here? Oh my god. Maybe PowerShell is like a scripting, it allows some sort of scripting language, but still, why people would vote on this? Oh my god. But yeah, so we have JavaScript and HTML in first position. So this makes sense, by the way, because the browser is literally running on JavaScript and HTML and CSS. So it's kind of normal that half of the people here saying that they are using JavaScript and HTML, which also tells me that probably more than half of the people here are literally doing web development because they need to build front ends, Then we have Python. I think Python on the third position comes from two things. Python for web development, which obviously is super strong with Django, but also comes a little bit with data manipulation, AI tooling. So Python is literally conquering a little bit that world, if you guys don't know. SQL, of course, with MySQL, Postgres and everything, almost impossible not to use this these days if you want to use a real database. I have never done any sort of web development using Java. To close a little bit the topic on Java, so we were checking the Spring Boot framework, which I have never used. I was wondering if they have some sort of routing example. Oh, there you go. We have like a routing example. So this is how you define routing using Spring Boot. Interesting. So you map this little function to the route hello, which returns back a string on this format. Oh, they also have the type string. Dude, C# is a cool language, from what I can remember. Then we have C++ and C. So this is probably, these two, C and C++, are probably people not doing web development, which is probably people from this side of the JavaScript world, you know what I mean? C and C++, both systems languages like Rust, not intended for web development, literally intended for embedded devices or operating systems. And of course, we have the biggest, the mighty PHP, to the biggest, to the best language in the world, PHP. Come on, let's clap for PHP with our 18.2%. Let's go, PHP is still strong right there. Now, some people say that PHP is kind of declining a little bit. I'm going to tell you my opinion about this topic, okay? I'm going to be upfront with you. Why do I think that PHP have decreased from probably something like 25-30% of people to something like 18.2? I feel like the reason is that PHP was probably doing too much. You know what I mean? PHP in the past was probably doing too much. So there wasn't things like, mobile applications, front ends built with JavaScript. We have PHP kind of doing everything, the back end, building the front end with regular HTML and CSS. So people were doing or using PHP for kind of everything. And I feel like now PHP have been scoped to what originally was meant for, which is regular web development. And we have things like, Laravel, which is an amazing framework. I love it. And, happy about this number. We are still way more used than Go and Rust and more. I feel that this number on Rust is kind of lying a little bit, though. No way 1 in 10 developers are doing Rust these days. You know what I mean? Yeah, PHP before, I mean, you guys know, right? In the past, people were doing apps with PHP, literally, and HTML and CSS. The entire front end didn't have anything on JavaScript. It was literally just HTML and CSS. And every time you would re-render, a form or a new page, for example, the entire HTML would be, sent to the browser. Now, I can tell you that probably 95% of the apps outside, they are built still this way. Like GitHub is built this way. Many apps out there are still built this way. One in every 20 developers doing assembly? No way, dude. You know what I mean? No way. Like, there is some numbers here which I really doubt. I'm gonna tell you a few. 1 out of 20 developers are doing assembly. I don't believe on that, 1 out of 10 developers are doing Rust. I also don't believe on that. I think 1 of 20 developers have experience with Rust, potentially, but not actually, working with Rust.